Hello and welcome to warrenthornton.com. We have a very long, not a long show, but we do have a very interesting one for you tonight, I think. Let's have a little look, shall we? There we are, and welcome, as I say, to everybody who's watching. So let's get into it right from the get-go, because I think there is so much to cover tonight, and we need to be able to talk about this. Let's have a look at this, first of all.
To Tehran now, to Ali Hashim. So, Ali, President Donald Trump saying Iran has asked for a ceasefire. What's being said there?
Well, according to Iranian officials, they're denying completely this request for a ceasefire. The only thing that comes to mind is President Pezeshkian's call today with the head of the European Council, President of the European Council, where he said, we have the necessary resolve to bring this war to an end while observing its requirements, especially the essential guarantees to prevent the recurrence of aggression. This is the only thing close to what might be an idea of ending the war. But of course, it's not a request of ceasefire, and it emphasizes on the idea of ending the war with guarantees that it's not going to occur once again. So it's completely different from what President Trump has been tweeting or, posting on Truth Social. So Iranian officials are denying this completely. And we heard yesterday the foreign minister, he's the man in charge of the diplomacy in this country, saying that they're not looking for a ceasefire. They want a comprehensive end of this war. And actually, all the analysis here in Iran and the observations and officials are saying that they are not in a position to ask for a ceasefire, because this is going to be very harmful for Iran, because it's going to leave this whole conflict in this just flying the sky in tatters. At any time they might be attacked once again. What they want is, just like Mr. Pezeshkian said, the president Pezeshkian, that they need guarantees so that this is not going to happen again. Also, Abbas Araghchi yesterday in a phone call with the Lebanese speaker, Nabil Berri, said that the end of the war in Iran is going to be in accordance with the end of the war in Lebanon. I mean, it's very complicated to end this way.
Ali, thanks for that. Ali Hashim there in Tehran.
Now, let's get into the truth of this, because, of course, Trump has posted that they asked for a ceasefire. He's also posted many other things, of course. But Iran have asked for a ceasefire was something that he put out there. Iran's new regime president, much less radicalized. Well, there's no new regime. There is the same system of government as they had before. If you kill the leader of that government, that doesn't mean that the government has changed. Far from it. Much less radicalized. That's not true. They're more hardline and far more intelligent than his predecessors. I don't know quite how he knows that. Let's just ask the United States of America for a ceasefire. That's not true. We will consider when Hormuz Strait is open, free and clear. That's counter to what he said before. Until then, we are blasting Iran into oblivion, or as they say, back to the Stone Ages. That is not a good look. I don't know who's advising you on this, but saying that we're bombing people back to the Stone Age, it's not going to win you any friends or influence people at all. That is, if you actually care about having friends and influencing people, which I suspect they do not. Now, Trump, again, has come out with yet another statement. As it says, we are blasting back to the Stone Age. He put that out there. And, of course, he came out with another one that turned around and said, as far as we're concerned, of course, we will be able to do this. We'll be able to sort this out. And of course, there we go. He's put this out on 3 occasions now. And of course, everybody is calling it out because having put the same statement out on 3 different occasions, everybody is saying, why are you doing this? You just need to put it out once. Well, Iran have responded to this quite straightforward. Trump has finally achieved his dream of regime change, but in the region's maritime regime. The Strait of Hormuz will certainly reopen, but not for you. It will be open for those who comply with the new laws of Iran. The 47 years of hospitality are over forever. So there we go. That is literally the Iranians turning around and saying, you are never coming through the Straits of Hormuz ever again. So what is the truth of this? Well, the truth is very, very straightforward. What has been happening, just in case you weren't aware or you didn't see the earlier show, and hi to all those just coming in. Very, very simply, Trump is going to address the American nation at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, which, of course, will be around about 10 o'clock. You're in the UK. Sorry, not in the UK. It will be about 10 o'clock my time, which means you'll all still be well in bed. I would imagine by then, which would be about 1 a.m. Your time. So he has asked for network time to go on. If you're in the UK, by the way, that will be about 1 a.m. It'll be about 10 o'clock here in the Philippines in the morning. So no point us having a live because you'll all be in bed. But we will, of course, be catching up with the morning show, 7:30 in the morning, subscriber show. So if you want to be part of that, come along. Here's what we have. And very, very simply, Witkoff has been texting Arachi. And the reason he's been texting Arachi is they've been trying to put this 15-point peace plan. And of course, they have got very, very upset because, of course, Iran have just been coming out and instead of talking to them, they've not talked to them at all. What they've actually done is turned around and said, look, as far as we're concerned, we're not having anything to do with them. We can't trust them. There's no point us having anything whatsoever to do with Trump, nothing to do with talks. If they want to have talks and everything else, they can go through the normal channels. And of course, they have literally, America have been turning around and saying, well, they've agreed to the 15-point plan. They haven't even spoken about the 15-point plan. Arachi has had no direct contact back. Yes, he's been getting text messages from Witkoff, but of course, they've been responding through the media, which America are pretty annoyed about. And of course, Trump is just going to keep coming out with all of this stuff until eventually, let's put it this way, it goes away. Iran has come out and said the same thing. This is the Iranian foreign minister straight away saying that they're seeking a completely peaceful resolution of everything. Until they do, there's no talking.
Of course, the assault is currently ongoing, but your point is correct. We have no good experience of negotiating with the United States. In the past, we negotiated and reached an agreement, only for the United States to withdraw from it for no reason. Twice more, this year and last year, we negotiated, and the result was their assault and attack. There is no trust that negotiation with the United States can lead to results. Trust is at zero. Every time they present a proposal for negotiation, the first issue we must examine is how honest they are, and we see none. There is no trust, and to build trust, major steps must be taken. Whether the Islamic Republic decides to do so or not is another matter. But in response to any proposal, the issue is how much trust exists. At present, no trust exists.
And there we go. So that's Iran turning around and saying what they're saying. And of course, we've had Trump coming out with a couple of things. And we'll talk to about Alex Christoforou and, of course, Alexander Makouros a little bit later. Sean Murphy.
Well, I think Arachi is absolutely correct in what he says.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want something to go on that, by the way, very, very easy to get an easy read on this.
Oh, there's. Oh. And when I read the fake New York Times, you take a look at it, it's like, oh, they're putting up a good fight. They're not putting up a fight. They're not even shooting at us, okay?
Are y'all good? Everybody's good? Everybody over here is good? Yeah. Good. I saw that one come in. You guys all right? Everybody okay? Yeah. All right.
And a lot of people are talking about this and saying, where was that? Well, that was in Jordan, by the way, just to let you know. And that means that they very much know where they are. They very much know where the American troops are. If anybody's sort of harboring thoughts, wonderful thoughts of a ceasefire and walking away, Trump may be wanting to walk away. He's not really going to. That's the problem that we've got. And of course, everybody is saying all sorts of different things. But Iran are saying no more passage. And that's it. As far as they're concerned, for the Americans, for the rest of their natural, this is from Sarah Bills from DD Geopolitics.
هم دولت هم نیروهای مسلح و در واقع سطوح بالای نظام همه در مورد این مسئله متفق القولن. یعنی ما دیگه نسبت به تنگه هرمز به عقب بر نخواهیم گشت. تنگه هرمز از این پس باید توسط جمهوری اسلامی ایران مدیریت بشه. در این طرح مسائلی مثلا دریافت عوارض باربری یا همون راهبری کشتی ها، هر نوع کشتی، از باربری، از حمل مواد در واقع سوختی، انرژی، کالاهای مختلف، کالاهای شیمیایی، هر عبوری اینا همه درش هست. عوارض آلایندگی هست، برای کشتی ها دارن عبور میکنن. خلیج فارس باید نسبت به سلامت محیط زیستش توجه بشه. و یک پیشنهادایی هم نمایندگان عزیز ما دارن که پیشنهادات خوبی، همه اینا در حال بررسی. من جمله در موضوع به طور مثال عرض میکنم عدم اجازه عبور کشتی‌های اسرائیلی تا همیشه، یعنی در همه تاریخ مدیریت ما بر این تنگه دیگه این اتفاق نیفته. یا اگر کشتی داره عبور میکنه حتما باید توجه کنه با چه عنوانی از اونجا عبور کنه، حتما پیام نام خلیج فارس رو ببره. یک بندها و موادی برای این طرح هست که مهمترینش اون موضوع عوارضه که هم عواید اقتصادی برای کشور داشته باشه و هم از این پس خود به خود حوزه تحریمی در دنیا بر علیه جمهوری اسلامی ایران با این مدیریت استراتژیک بتونه شکسته بشه و قطعاً آثار بسیار خوبی داره. انشالله بعد از تکمیل هم مردم در جریان کامل جزئیات اون و هماهنگی هایی که با سایر دستگاه ها خواهد صورت گرفت که بشه انشالله اون رو بعد از تصویب به مردم ارائه داد.
انشالله.
There we are. So very simply, Israel and the United States will not be allowed through the Straits of Hormuz. Mark Onza.
There's one thing that's very clear. This is something that's not going to be ending anytime soon. And
no, it's
clearly
not.
America's started something they cannot finish.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And of course, at the moment, they are bombing the living daylights out of Isfahan. And of course, they're going to come out and say that they've done this in Isfahan. They've done that. Iran has said no more passage whatsoever under any circumstances. Mark, you're absolutely right. It isn't going to end anytime soon. It absolutely is not. And if anybody is out there under the delusion that it's going to end, that there's going to be a ceasefire, you're literally having a bit of a giggle. Have a look at this. There we go. So that is quite a few A10s, 12 of them in all coming into Lakenheath, and they are coming back to not to refuel, they're coming back to rearm. Excuse me, voice went a little there. They are coming back to rearm. They're not coming back to basically sit there. And as you can see, lots and lots of these various types of planes landing everywhere. And they are coming back for a pause to rearm. That's the only reason that there is going to be a pause. Don't think for 1 second that this is over, that we're going to, suddenly everything's going to be hunky-dory. When Trump goes on TV, there are 2 announcements he can possibly make that will make any sense whatsoever. One, he's leaving, and he's going to leave the Straits of Hormuz because he's already said once the Straits of Hormuz are open, then saying we don't care about the Straits of Hormuz, we're just going to go anyway and leave them to it. That is simply not going to happen. And of course, once this happens, they'll come back again on some pretext or other. This is going to happen. Don't think for 1 second that it's not, because this is going to happen over and over and over again until eventually somebody puts a stop to it. And as I say, the things that are going on in terms of this airtime, he's going to turn around and say, we are leaving. We have depleted their uranium. What they're going to do is they're going to say, well, we've hit Isfahan. We've hit it really, really hard. We've blown up everything they've got. They're in no position whatsoever to fight back. Therefore, we've depleted all their nuclear stockpile and all the rest of it. Nobody is going to buy that for a second. Absolutely no one. But that is what they are going to come out with. And of course, Trump is being literally told to go away, out of context quotes, manufactured information, war profiteering, one-on-one, accusing of pushing up shares and manipulating the market for his friends. Sean Murphy.
Well, initially, after the first 12-day war, when they said, oh, we've destroyed everything, and then it was found out quite simply they hadn't, nobody's going to believe them anymore.
No, exactly
Even
that.
though they've been bombing the hell out of it, doesn't mean to say that they've destroyed anything of particular importance, because it's not just left sitting in pallets on the ground.
Yeah, exactly that. Robert.
I would say for the young gentleman listening in Michigan, this war is being fought for the benefit of the people who are pushing digital ID, and also it's why jobs are vanishing all over the world.
Yeah.
And I'm sure these chaps are going to think, what sort of job is for you? Well, this government, your government, my government, the one in Britain is exactly the same. We are all suffering, and we must all realize what's being done to us.
Yes, never a truer word spoken. Louis Bastos.
Nobody believes America anymore, whatever they say, or any Western country. So it's not whether we're going to or not going to. We don't believe in them, anybody anymore.
Yeah. So let's give you a couple of heads up here. If Trump walks away from this now, he's finished. His donors will turn on him. There's already people starting to turn on him left, right and centre. He will literally be finished. That will be it. There will be no more Donald Trump, because his donors will make sure of that. What he's going to do is he's going to say that they have managed to hit and degrade. They've pushed Iran back, as I say, as he was saying. We bombed them back to the Stone Age. Everything is absolutely okay. And of course, the Israelis, it is being touted, now we haven't got confirmation on this, that the Israelis are pretty happy with what's been done. One of those, don't really push your luck, because of course we won't go and do it again if you turn around and you start making waves. So be happy with what we've done. We've done enough for you for the time being. And what you want to do now is just be thankful what we've done. And of course, there's lots and lots of people turning around and going, well, this is complete nonsense. Missiles, US bases. Have a look at this.
Oh, there's. Oh.
Now, Iran is still able to hit them, as you've seen that one already. But that Iran are still able to hit them because of the Yads, which is this huge underground bunker. It's a huge underground bunker right in central Iran. And of course, they are hitting Isfahan at the moment because it is the site, a nuclear site. And also, they've managed to get rid of quite a few of these rocket launchers. About 15% of the missiles and the rocket launchers, they've managed to blow up with these huge bunker busters. They can't do that at Yads. The rock is too dense and they are too far down. Iran can keep firing and will keep firing. Louis Bastos.
And Russia, China, and North Korea will just supply them with more. No problem.
Yeah, absolutely that. And here's something that you've got to bear in mind as well. These are US helicopters that are training for an assault. Now, we've said long ago that this is coming. And as I say, they're taking part in training exercises. We all know what's coming. There's going to be around about a 5 or 6 day air campaign where they bomb the living daylights out of Iran. And then they're going to try a landing. And as we've been through all 4 places where they're going to try a landing. They might try one at Chabahar. That is a very dangerous one because it still takes them a long way from the Straits of Hormuz. Keshem Island is right on the Straits of Hormuz. That is the worst one where they are sitting ducks. Chabahar is the next most dangerous because we're a long way away from the strait, hemmed in on mountains on all sides. Karg Island, at least they can give some air cover from Saudi Arabia and they can transit everything they need to keep going literally through the corridor there. Chris says, what is the likelihood of a ground invasion? We're just going to come to that. But the ideal place for them to go, of course, is Tabriz, where they've been bombing the living daylights out of that and try and cut off that corridor. So the idea would be to capture an oil field in the northern part of Iran and then use what they did in Syria, where they use all these Blackstone people and everybody else, and Blackwater and various other paramilitary companies. And that's the whole idea. What were they training? Warren Wifey thinks it may be in Cyprus. Yes, it is. Where were they training? Sorry, yes, it was in Cyprus. They're training and they're using British Air Base to do that. Guess which one? Akrotiri, the one we've been telling you that's happening. What is the likelihood of a mass ground invasion force? Very, very small. You can do what you need to do. You can put Karg Island out of business by bombing the hell out of it, okay, for the time being. But the ground invasion itself, if it's going to come, it's not putting troops on Karg Island, absolutely deadly. You're going to get wiped out. But the northern part of Iran, what they did in Syria, going in, capturing an area, a set of oil fields, and then expanding from there later, at a later date, that's certainly on the cards. And as they say, in answer to Chris's question, they didn't get dressed up for nothing. So they're going to go in a limited capacity, and they're either going to try some strikes and then withdraw, or they're going to go and capture an airfield. But trust me, no matter what Trump says tomorrow, this thing is not over. I am hearing this from our sources in the Pentagon that they are gearing up. They didn't get geared up for nothing. They are getting ready to go into an area. And I turned around and said, it seems a bit crazy. And they said that they are worried sick, okay, that Trump is going to give the okay on this. Rubio is pushing very, very hard for this to happen. Robert.
What must be remembered that all governments that are involved in this, British government, American government, the American A-10s are firing depleted uranium shells,
yes,
which will make Iran a very dangerous place for any American troops that go there. They will come back with cancer riddled through their bodies.
They will, as many of the Americans were. You're absolutely right. And this is more training going on over Cyprus. This was said to us by a friend of ours. Of course it was. We've got lots of friends everywhere, and they sent that to us. And that is, and Robert is absolutely right. They are using these Warthog A10s, and these Warthog A10s are designed not only for firing these, but also these shells. Lee Williams.
I was just going to add, does Iran know when they're coming in, and it might even be a case that they'll secretly take them out before they even get there, or will they actually let them be in the area to them to be made a target, just to show the USA or let's say Europe and everybody that they're never going to win?
Okay, good question. So let's give you a heads up on this, because the USS Abraham Lincoln has scuttled even further away because Iran launched about 15 drones towards it. None of them were packing any explosives, by the way, but they sent this squadron of drones towards the USS Abraham Lincoln. They've either fallen in the ocean or been taken out. But the USS Abraham Lincoln was given even further orders to go even further away. So, of course, this is a problem. If Iran are sensible, and Iran are sensible, they turned around and said, we're waiting for this. And literally, what you would do is you want them to come in, and you want to have some idea of the area they're going. You know, like the Normandy landing succeeded because the Germans split their forces. Iran are not going to do that. They're going to get good intel from the Chinese, from the Russians, where they're going to go. And if they've got any sense at all, they let them come ashore. If they're going on an island, if they try one of these islands or the port, it's going to be a bloodbath. You're going to see hundreds. And there are more troops dead than people are letting on. So remember what we said about American military. They subcontract out to these private security firms, and then America have Great Britain, France, everybody has plausible deniability. They can go, oh no, they're mercenary soldiers. They weren't part of the British Army. They weren't part of the French Army, so on and so forth. And we know that they do that all the time. So we have at the moment, what we have got, the latest figure, 271 mercenary / US Army soldiers and CIA personnel that are dead, and 778 that have been injured, and that's from the Pentagon sources. So we're perfectly happy to put that out there. And anybody that's saying, oh, it's only 13 or 15, you're talking absolute rot. Okay, and people turn around and go, oh, mercenaries. The US base in Erbil, it's on its own, has had more casualties than they are actually turning around and saying that they've had. Okay, as I say, the US base in Erbil has just gone. You know, when it's been blown up, and it's been blown up left, right, and centre. Let's have a little look. And while we're on the subject of Erbil, by the way, this is Britain's Castrol oil, literally going up in flames in Erbil. Here we go. Yes, Dennis. It says Dennis says Trump's meant to be making an announcement 9 p.m. Washington time. Yeah, Eastern Standard Time. And of course, that'll be, if you're in the UK, that's going to be, your time's going to be about 1 o'clock in the morning, I believe. It's going to be about 10 a.m. here. And of course, we just highlighted that at the start of the show. You were late in, so you missed it, buddy. But yes, that is going on. That's going to happen. So just to let you know that is coming. We're going to have a bit of Douglas McGregor in a minute. Lee Williams.
Yeah, all I was going to add is you're only 7 hours ahead now because we've gone back an hour.
Yes, yeah, that's true. Yeah. So instead of I was adding 9 on there, wasn't I? Yeah. So that's going to be a little bit earlier. No point staying up. You're just going to get rubbish. That's literally what you're going to get. You're going to get absolute rubbish. He's going to come out with all sorts of stuff, and everybody's going to go, oh, no. And of course, as I say, they are training in Cyprus. They are not training in Cyprus for nothing. Okay, please get that into your heads. They're not training in Cyprus for nothing here. And anybody, as I say, who thinks this is over, this is trying to lull everybody into a false sense of security. Let's hear from Douglas McGregor then. Enough of me waffling on. Now, this is about a 35-minute interview here, but he is pretty good. And he disagrees with me. He thinks that there's no way they're going to put boots on the ground. This is a major part of where we disagree. But we'll see who's right. Let's have a look. Oh, that should be coming up.
This information, what I think you're seeing is another manifestation of the absence of any real strategic planning, thinking, preparation before execution. Everything is impulse driven. It's whatever Donald Trump wakes up and decides he wants to do. His cabinet scurries around and tries to respond to it. Now, in reality, what happened? I think that we thought we had an opportunity inside Iran to really disrupt the regime, even bring it down. This, of course, was based on the protests that are really a consequence of a terrible economic situation and the dramatic reduction in value of the rial, the Iranian currency. Now, a lot of us have wondered why Iran has not gone to BRICS or to the Chinese or someone and said, look, lend me $1 billion, because they could do that easily. That would boost the economy and help the situation tremendously. But for some reason, they haven't done that. Now, I know there's Islamic law that essentially forbids usury. This is one of the reasons the banks in the Islamic world tend to be very solid as opposed to ours. I don't know if that's the justification for it, but the bottom line is that what you started with were very legitimate protests about the economic conditions in Iran. Those overlapped with a struggle, political struggle, between reformers and conservatives. This then was developed into a CIA, Mossad, MI6 operation with the introduction of thousands of these Starlight terminals, enormous quantities of money, which in that setting, of course, is going to buy a certain amount of support. And now we have all sorts of evidence that's being provided overseas as well as here at home for instructions given to people in the crowds to fire on the police and provoke the police to shoot back at them in the hopes that people would be killed. And this then would worsen the situation. Well, all of this unfolded, and it failed. It failed for a whole variety of reasons. The failure began, I would argue, last week on Friday when the Iranians and the Turks cooperated to annihilate 400 Kurdish fighters who were trying to move from Syria into Iran. Mm-hmm. I don't think the Mossad or the CIA anticipated that, but I think that's a very important development. There's a growing appreciation in Turkey for the criticality of stability and unity in Iran. The two states, for different reasons, have been competitors and sometimes enemies over 1,000 years, but both are civilizational states. We need to understand that. Americans don't have any idea what that means. Iran is Persia. The Persian Empire has been with us for 2,500, 2,600 years. They have a unique civilization and culture. So did the Turks, for very similar reasons. The Turks came out of Central Asia. They're not Arabs. Anyway, the point is that both of these states are not going to help us or the Israelis destroy one or the other, because they see their survival as civilizational states at risk. So what's happened is that the Starlight terminals were largely picked up, confiscated. The Chinese assisted technically helping to suppress and jam these things and the satellite connections. I think the Russians have helped in whatever way they could, but the point is, I think President Trump was told that this was a golden moment in time, which would allow him with very little effort to topple the government. That failed miserably. Secondly, once it became clear that failed, I can't prove this, but I suspect the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Kane, probably told him, if we're going to do this, we're going to need more firepower, because what we anticipated has not happened. In other words, the country is not imploding. Its armed forces are intact. Its integrated air and missile defenses are intact, and so forth. And I think at that point, stories were spun out to explain why now suddenly the attack was off. And remember, President Trump tried to persuade people, well, they've stopped killing, and I told them I didn't want them to kill. Give us a break. There's no evidence that Trump gives a damn about who lives or dies in the Middle East, least of all Iran. Mm-hmm. So I think that's just nonsense. And I think they had a Pakistani diplomat insists in his discussions with the Iranians that they told him that they informed Trump that they were scaling back on the killing. Now, maybe that was true, but I don't think it's killing in the sense of what you saw in the riots, I think it's really executions of fifth columnists, people that betrayed their country and sold out principally to Mossad, because you had, according to Mr. Pompeo, lots of Mossad agents out in the audience. Well, gosh, what a shock.
Right.
So I think they probably told, it could be that President Putin, because supposedly the Russians have had their hand in advising them, said, listen, scale back on these executions for the moment.
Yeah.
Even though we tolerate these kinds of executions in Saudi Arabia and any other places all the time, and Trump never expressed any concern about the loss of life in Gaza. So who knows? But I think the show is on. You have to look at the Lincoln Carrier Battle Group. It's still on its way to the region. We may see a second show up. I wouldn't be surprised. So I think the war is definitely on the agenda. And I don't see any evidence that Mr. Netanyahu is relenting. This is his golden moment. Either he acts and gets the full support, unconditional support of the United States Armed Forces and wins his war in his mind, or he loses.
Yeah. There was an odd earthquake in Israel yesterday. I don't know if you heard about this, a very short, odd earthquake that people are reporting happened right at where Israel would potentially be keeping nuclear weapons, that perhaps they were doing a test. They'd also had reportedly said that there was going to be an earthquake drill at the very moment that that it actually happened. Like they could predict, they knew when this earthquake was coming, which we don't have that kind of technology at this point to know when earthquakes are coming unless you're causing the earthquake. So do you think that Israel is preparing to go nuclear against Iran?
Well, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that that could have been an underground nuclear test in the vicinity of Dimona, which is the region you're talking about. But we don't know. And you're not going to get the truth out of the United States government, which is essentially in the grip of Mr. Netanyahu and his billionaire donors in the United States. So I don't think we're going to find out the truth on that subject. Just keep in mind from the very beginning, and I'm not the Lone Ranger, I've said this several times, there is always a danger that if things go south for the Israelis, that they will turn to a nuclear weapon.
Yeah.
We estimate they have between 250 and 300 nuclear warheads potentially. I don't know how many launchers. Some of these are on submarines. They have several Dolphin-class submarines the Germans gifted to them that were modified to carry cruise missiles with nuclear warheads. They can also deliver these from missiles on the ground. They can deliver them from F-15s to F-35s. So they have that capacity. And, this is something that the Turks have addressed, actually, obliquely. Even Mr. Erdogan publicly said, we know what you have, and we're not afraid. Well, the reason he's not afraid is that for years, and we're going back 30 years, the Pakistanis have promised the Turks a nuclear weapon if they need it. That's always been available to the Turks. And obviously, what a catastrophe that would be for the Middle East if the Israelis were arrogant and stupid enough to use a nuclear weapon. And I think we would see nuclear weapons spring up all over the place, and that would be the end of Israel. So I hope that that's not going to happen. But I don't see any evidence, maybe you do, Kim, I don't see any evidence that we have any real influence over Israel. I see a lot of evidence that Israel has huge influence over us.
Yeah, yeah. And I think they are crazy enough to use a nuke. I mean, I don't put that outside of the realm of possibility. Their behavior has shown that they don't value human life to the level that one would expect of a Western democracy that they claim to be. But Iran, reportedly, there's also a bunch of hypersonic missiles pointed at Israel right now from Iran. And what's Israel's defense? I mean, Israel's a tiny country. Iran's massive. They saw what happened to them this past spring. So I would think that they would be gearing up with a nuclear weapon, and I don't put it past them to use it. The question is then, what would Iran do? I mean, the thinking for America is, well, the nuclear weapons we dropped on Japan, that ended the war. That was it. So Israel would think, okay, we dropped the nuke and that'll end the war. That'll be it. But I don't know if that would be it.
No, I don't. I don't think so. Which is the rationale for the comments I made to you earlier. Remember that Iran consists of a population of over 90 million. The country itself is the size of Western Europe. You have the Turks who are not far behind them. And I think that the use of a nuclear weapon could precipitate the opposite of what the Israelis think it might produce.
Right.
Of course, they may then assume that we will employ our nuclear weapons that we have at sea in support of them. I hope not, because if that were even possible, that would very definitely bring in the Russians and the Iranians. Remember that the Iranians buy roughly 30% of their oil from Iran. It comes through the Persian Gulf.
The Chinese, you mean?
Chinese, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the Russians are very, very concerned about their southern flank because of Central Asia. They want a stable partner in Iran. Iran, if it were to become destabilized or worse yet, divided or fragmented into smaller states, could prove to be an enormous problem for the Russians. They want good relations because they also want Iran to be part of BRICS and this thing we call the One Belt, One Road project. And we've already seen trains arrive from China in Iran carrying various goods. So Iran is a critical member of the what I would call the China, Russia, India, Iranian quadrangle, if you will. All of these states are linked in one way or another. So we're looking at a real potential in the region for Armageddon, which I suppose there are some deranged people that welcome that on the belief of that some has some sort of religious payoff, but for the rest of us, it's insane.
Right.
And we should try and stop it to the extent that we can. But here's the problem: as I was reviewing this man Witkoff, the real estate guru or whatever that is friends with Trump, who runs around with Kushner making deals and pocketing huge quantities of money, at the same time theoretically representing us. And he communicated these demands to Iran. He said, stop enriching uranium, reduce missile stockpiles, reduce approximately 2,000 kilograms of enriched uranium material to 60%, and stop supporting quote-unquote regional proxies. That means anybody that Israel doesn't like.
Right.
In return, we'll lift sanctions. Well, that's just, they can't comply with that. You might as well say the same thing to the Russians. We keep making demands of the Russians, now making demands of Iran that they won't meet because they're sovereign states. And the more that you threaten, the more persuaded they are that they desperately need to build up their military capacity. So it looks like a dead end, and I think we're going to see this war break out probably in 7 to 10 days.
How does it end? I mean, when it comes to regime change, for example, I don't know why they ever thought there's only one way. I mean, we've been doing all of these various tactics to try to get the people inside of countries to turn on their leadership, right? We've sanctioned Cuba for how long, kept them poor for how long, did the same thing to Venezuela. They saw 130,000% increase in inflation. It didn't work. It didn't oust Maduro. There's really only one way for regime change to happen, and that is the military's got to turn on you. And that has historically been the case over and over and over again. When you lose the military, that's when you lose your power. It all comes down to military. So it doesn't look like the Iranian regime, the Iranian military is turning against the Iranian government anytime soon. I mean, maybe, and that would be the only way I could see change actually happening. Otherwise, you just end up in an all-out war, a bloody war, and then I don't know exactly how does that one end. We're not going to go and conquer Iran, are we? I mean, what would be the end game of that war? How would it end?
Israel is in a win or lose everything situation. So if Israel embarks on this war with Iran, the leadership of Iran, the state of Iran, must be destroyed. If it's not destroyed, Israel will be destroyed. I mean, this is the view from Netanyahu and the people that support him. So this is a one-way ticket to Armageddon. So, whatever happens, unless miraculously, as you point out, everything changes, which I don't expect to happen in Iran, this will end up being the destruction of Israel. Now, here we are, and we have pledged our life, treasure, blood, everything to defend Israel to the bitter end. Well, what does that mean? How far are we willing to go?
Right.
Are we willing to engage in a nuclear exchange on behalf of Israel? Well, right now, I would say President Trump would do whatever he's told by Netanyahu and his donors. I just read the other day something about Ron Lauder, this billionaire whose mother or grandmother, I guess, was thrown out of Vienna, Austria, back when the Nazis took over, and she had a perfume business. She came to the United States and made it into $1 billion perfume industry. Supposedly, he is the one who planted the idea of annexing Greenland with the president. So we know who the president listens to. He listens to his billionaire friends and buddies, who all happen to be Zionists. So my great concern is that instead of acting like the president of the United States, he'll act like the president of Israel. And that means that he'll rush to the defense of Israel, come hell or high water. I mean, isn't that why Mark Levin calls President Trump the first Jewish president of the United States?
I just don't know how this ends. I mean, that's just the real question. Do you think we're going to end up sending American boots and putting them on the ground in Iran?
No. The country's too big. There are too many people involved. We couldn't control Afghanistan if our lives depended upon it. We couldn't control Vietnam, really. Unless you're willing to go in and essentially behave like Genghis Khan and kill 40 or 50,000 people to make your point, which, thank God, we have not been willing to do, then I don't see much hope. I mean, in Algeria, where the French had enormous success against an insurgency, they always admitted that as soon as you pulled the troops out of the area, you lost control again. So I don't see any future for that. All I see is the potential for enormous destruction of life and property. The other thing is that we should not discount the readiness of the Russians or the Chinese to become involved in this.
Yeah.
And I think we do. And I think President Putin has tried very hard to make it clear, don't do this. Don't engage in this war against Iran. And I think we've said, oh, well, it doesn't matter. Listen to General Keane, who probably is one of Trump's senior military advisors for all intents and purposes. And what does he say? Oh, Putin's bluffing. The Ukrainians are winning. Millions of Russians are dying. The economy's broken. Don't worry. That hasn't worked out very well. No. But I think he still is singing the tune that the president is hearing in his ear.
Well, Colonel Douglas Macgregor, thank you so much for being here and giving us your insight into this. It's a scary time for sure. I mean, again, I just don't know how what they think the outcome, what a positive winning outcome is for them. If they think they could go in and somehow control Iran, take down the government, and then what? Are we gonna break it up into pieces? And
there we go. So that was Colonel Douglas Macgregor. I thought I'd play that for you. And of course, it's broken up into two segments. The very, very simple thing here is Douglas Macgregor is an excellent commentator. We do disagree on boots on the ground. And there's a reason we disagree on boots on the ground because of various, shall we say, stuff that they're training with at the moment. And for me, that is a real problem. Everything that they are training with is going to be a problem. Nilis.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, rather than he is. But he said that they would be really stupid if they put boots on the ground.
Never underestimate the stupidity of the American. I'll tell you the three things that make me think this, Nilis. First of all, putting all those people there and the people that we've got that are very close to the Pentagon, Pentagon, they're actually in the Pentagon. So, is that they've got F-16 multi-role fighters. Those planes that you saw landing, getting ready to get loaded up, are A-10 Thunderbolt close air support aircraft, and they're used mainly for amphibious landings and when troops go in. And of course, the helicopters you saw training in Cyprus are AH-64 Apache attack helicopters, which are used for that sort of thing as well.
Was that Megyn Kelly he was talking to?
Sorry?
Was it Megyn Kelly he was talking to?
No, he doesn't talk a lot to Megyn Kelly. I'm not sure who the interviewer was, but no, Megyn Kelly wouldn't be one of the ones he's really talking to a lot. But as I say, Douglas McGregor, he's a pretty good analyst. He pretty much gets a heck of a lot right. And what we're going to do tomorrow as well is probably, I'm trying to set it up, but we'll probably have Cafe Revolution. Johnny, if you remember, used to give us all the war reports from inside Ukraine. Well, he's currently in India. Now, he spent 2 years in Israel and he's got a new video out. So we're going to try and entice him to come and talk to us. Because, of course, as I say, he spent 2 years in Israel and saw half of these lunatics and the should we say the craziness of these people. So it's highly likely that might be at 5 o'clock, and it'll be a 3-hour show tomorrow where we'll have 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. because we'll have all the Trump thing and everything else to talk about. But if we can get Johnny on, then we'll do a 5 p.m. start because obviously he's in India and he won't want to stay up too late. Like me, he's getting on a little bit. So we'll try and set that up. And if we can get that done, then we will do that. Getting back to what Douglas McGregor's had to say, we're going to have a little listen in to the two Alexes now, Christophorou and Makuros. Let's have a little listen to them for 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll get on with the rest of the show. But I wanted to give you a broad view of the two people that I think are probably right up there in terms of, shall we say, their ability to gauge the situation. So let's have 10 or 15 minutes of them as well.
All right, Alexander, let's talk about the war in Iran, and let's talk about Trump's latest Truth Social post, and we can also discuss the Wall Street Journal article, the latest from the WSJ, which is now saying that that Trump has told his aides that he may walk away from the war, complete the objectives that Rubio actually outlined yesterday, which are basically military objectives: destroy the Navy, destroy the Army, destroy the launchers, accomplish these goals in the next 2 weeks, and then he's going to walk away from this conflict, is what the Wall Street Journal is reporting. This comes 2 days after the Wall Street Journal reported that Trump is preparing for a ground invasion into Iran to extract the uranium. So a lot of confusion with regards to Trump's messaging, and then we have the actual war that is happening and the information around the war, which is a continued escalation and the conflict continuing to intensify. So what do you think is happening now with the war?
I will tell you what I think. I think that Trump has now finally grasped the fact that he's losing control of this whole process. The Iranians are not capitulating. They're not negotiating. The way I read his Truth Social post, his latest one, is as an expression of frustration. He says that he's involved in negotiations with a much more reasonable and rational government than the one that was there previously. Of course, there is no visible sign of such a thing. It's pure fantasy. Basically, I read that as a plea to the people who are now in charge in Iran to negotiate with him. Because, of course, Trump cannot bring himself ever to just plea in that way. He adds this extraordinary threat, which is the same threat he's made in the past, to completely obliterate Iran's energy system. The Iranians were not moved by that before. I doubt they will be moved by that again. I don't believe it is achievable. But anyway, that is one thing that Trump is trying to do. He's trying to persuade the Iranians to negotiate with him so that he can get some kind of an off-ramp. That is one thing. And then at the same time, because this is someone who is, I would say, I think thrashing around is not too strong a way to describe it. He's also saying, well, let's have a ground invasion. Let's take Harg Island. Let's take other islands in the Strait of Hormuz. Maybe that will put the pressure on the Iranians. And then there's the third side of him, which says, well, look, if I can't get a deal, if nothing can be achieved, well, I'll just walk away. I'll leave it to the Europeans to sort out what they can with the Iranians over the oil. I will I will declare victory and walk away. And I think in Trump's mind, all three of these things are going on, spinning around inside his mind, from one day to the next. Sometimes he thinks of doing the one. Sometimes he tells his aides that he's thinking of doing the other. Then other times he's talking about doing the third. But I don't think there is any settled policy between the three. The dynamic is out of his control. The Iranians don't seem to be interested in negotiations. There is no sign of this political conflict in Tehran that he's talking about. There is no sign of this reasonable, moderate government willing to talk with him that he wants to see. And I don't personally think the option of walking away in the way that the Wall Street Journal article says he told his aides is really a viable one. So I have to say this. I still think the chances are, by far the greatest chances, are that we're going to see some kind of military escalation, an attack on Kharg Island. Not that anybody seems to think that that's going to achieve anything. I mean, we had this program with Jim Webb, who is a US military person, somebody, with big experience in military matters. I've seen what lots of other military people are also saying. They think that Kharg Island would be a very risky, very dangerous operation indeed, one which could easily go wrong. There's ideas of seizing other islands in the Strait of Hormuz. The Emiratis are claiming some of these islands. You can see that they're pushing. They're trying desperately to get something out of this debacle so they can at least say, if we have the islands are returned to our control, we've got something over the Iranians. I don't think that really helps in any way either. And I think it's also a high risk thing. There's still talk about carrying out raids deep inside Iran. I don't think there's anybody who seriously believes they can extract all the uranium. I mean, I may be wrong about that, but I don't understand how that would even be done. But overall, I still get the sense that the direction is towards further escalation. I don't think that Trump really can walk away. I think the political damage would be enormous, and I doubt that he can fool enough people into thinking that he's won for him to be able to do that politically. And I don't think he's going to find that. I don't think he's going to find that the Iranians, any Iranians, are interested in negotiating with him because of the duplicity and trickery that you've discussed many times in many programs, which has been the characteristic of his approach to the diplomacy with Iran. So that's where I think we are.
Going back to the post on Truth from the other day, where he says that he's speaking with a new Iranian leadership, and this leadership is better than the other leadership. Okay, whatever. In the middle of that post, he talks about destroying the power plants, the energy infrastructure, and even the desalination facilities. Is that legally? Is that a war crime for the leader of a country to openly state that? Yes. I mean, to openly publish something like that, we're going to go after the desalination and the energy facilities. And he says it in a way which leads me to believe you're a lawyer, I'm not, but the way he wrote it was in a way that suggested that this has no real military function whatsoever. I'm just doing it out of spite. I'm doing it because of what Iran did to us for 47 years. Yeah. So we're just going to ditch everything in the region. But before we go, we're going to destroy all of this because, we want to. I mean,
I should
publish that.
He published that.
Yeah.
I should say clearly, I've never been a war crimes lawyer at any point, but I do know a certain amount about it, and I've spoken about this sort of thing in the past. I've discussed it with people who are war crime lawyers, by the way, in relation to the Russian attack.
So let's pause that there for a minute, and we'll come back to it in a sec. But there is Nilis wants to speak, and possibly Chris as well. Nilis.
Yeah, what makes me a bit dubious about Alexander McCauley is he never mentioned Israel at all in that, and he doesn't mention Israel hardly at all.
No, he does stay away from that. he does stay away from that subject, doesn't he? And you know, go on, Nellis, go on.
And that's where Colonel McGregor really understands the truth of it, because Colonel McGregor understands that Trump is led by the nose by the Israel lobby, and he was calling him the first Israeli president in the United States. Yeah, Alexander Mercouris is a bit like George Galloway with the banks. Yeah, well, we can't touch that. We can't touch that. It's a bit anti-Semitic, isn't it?
And we're here. We always touch it. And tomorrow we're going. Hopefully, if we can get Johnny on, he spent 2 years in Israel, so he'll be able to tell us. Now, you're right, Nellis. I mean, we won't duck anything on this show. The reason for me being so bullish about this. If they're going to take anywhere, and I would totally agree with everybody, and this is to answer Chris's question as well. The fourth worst place, the worst place out of the four that they could possibly land, is obviously on Keshem Island, which is right in the middle of the Straits of Hormuz, right next to the mainland. You are sitting ducks. The next one is Chabahar, because you're behind the mountains. One of the roads out of Chabahar goes straight through the mountains. And you're in a bay where you can just get smashed. Karg Island, as I say, they can resupply through Israel and Jordan. But the most sensible place, if they were going to do a land operation, and remember, this may be all smoke and mirrors now, would be to do what they did in Syria, is take one of the oil fields in the north and then sow dissension inside the country, and then slowly do a yet another one of these, shall we say, overthrows of the government from inside of Iran. I don't personally think that can work, but they may well try and take one of the oil fields in the north, which means they can then resupply through Armenia. After all, Heli Arnoux of the French Military Intelligence Service went to Ukraine to set it up in 2020, and then he was made the NATO attaché, French defense attaché for Armenia. So this has definitely been in the works. And of course, they've already got oil fields in the Zangezur corridor, which has got all American mercenaries looking after the oil interests there. So, Nilis, as far as I'm concerned, that one would make sense, whether or not. But any campaign that they do is going to be preceded by about a 4 or 5 day absolute blanket bombing campaign to try and clear the ground first.
Yeah. But I was put my hand up for again. I don't think Trump would have touched any of this if it hadn't been for the Zionist lobby inside Israel and inside America.
Yeah. Chris says, why are the Gulf states in bed with Israel? Okay. Well, let's get into that, Chris. The Gulf states are in bed with Israel for the simple fact that they are literally owned by America now. Very simply, what they've got is they've got their puppets in there. Mohammed bin Salman, who is, of course, the leader of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia were behind, along with Israel and the USA, sponsoring the original riots back in June, where they tried to overthrow the government. The Saudi Arabians are right up there in terms of, many people are not aware of this. The Saudi Arabians are the third biggest sponsors of terrorist groups anywhere in the world, which is quite crazy, isn't it? And of course, Chris is saying it's because they're Wahhabis. Yeah, Al-Qaeda's, ISIS fanboys. And of course, you're absolutely right. And this is one of the reasons that, of course, we keep calling out. But you have to remember that they've got an American proxy in now, Chris, in every single state. If you look at the Gulf of the state of Hormuz, let's get the map up for you, actually. I'm just going to go through this a second. I know you guys have heard it before, but I think it's very important that we actually show this, because it is an incredibly invasive thing that many people don't realize is going on. So I'm just going to quickly get the map up so you can see exactly what goes on here, because people turn around and they go, oh, well, America, this, that, and the other. Nobody ever mentions Saudi Arabia and, of course, the areas that they've absolutely taken over. So, as I say, I'm just getting the map up for you now, and we'll be able to look through and see exactly what the score is. I've got the map up, so let's just ping this up here. Now, if you have a little look here at this map that we have, a revolving map, we've got Kuwait there, which they have a massive influx in. Though, of course, they've got Iraq, which isn't fully theirs, of course. Syria, which is now overthrown. And then if you go down through these, you go Kuwait, you go Saudi Arabia, you go Bahrain, you go obviously Qatar, United Arab Emirates, and Oman. So all that side of the Persian Gulf is basically owned by the Americans, because what they've done is turn around and said, we'll look after your interests in terms of if you ever come under attack. And it's quite clear now that they can't. But the whole idea was, you get rid of your military, we are now your military. And of course, they are now going to go along with anything America wants, for the simple fact that they don't have a military anymore. What they've got is basically an American military, and the American military are at the moment retreating away from those lands. So whether they're going to stick with them, and I suspect that they will, but they don't have a military to be able to argue. We're going to go Robert, Andy, then Nicholas. Robert.
The only way for Trump to come out of this smelling of roses is for him to have a night of the long knives, a la 1936.
Yes.
And send everything against Mossad and anyone with connections. And that includes the Edelsons, Soros, all the big Jewish donors. Wipe them out. And then he can come to an accommodation with Putin and say, look, I'll be your bitch in America.
That's a great idea, Robert, but it's much likely to be the other way around, to be honest, and more likely they'll get the knives out for Trump. Trump will not be able to do anything. He'll become an impotent president after November when he loses the midterms, and he's going to lose the midterms. When he becomes an impotent president, because his MAGA base is melting away, because he ran on no more wars. And then what will happen is they'll probably anoint little Damien, which is Marco Rubio, and that really will be a problem. But yeah, I like the thinking, but the chances of it happening pretty much zero. Andy?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if they hit or start carpet bombing around Tabriz, we know they're going in there.
Yes, absolutely. Once if you suddenly get a 5-day carpet bombing campaign, see, because it's very, very easy for him to turn around and go, they're negotiating, they're reasonable, and then 3 or 4 days later, well, we put their proposals forward, they knocked them all down, therefore they're as bad as the old regime. They haven't learned anything. We're going to have to go back and and sort it out. But Israel have turned around and said that as far as they're concerned, and I don't believe this for a moment, that they don't consider Iran an existential threat. Now, unless Israel have been promised that America are going to stage something like that oil field thing, where they do a Syria type thing, then of course Israel, anything that Israel are saying in that regard is complete and utter nonsense. Nicholas.
Yeah. We talked about this before, but the thing is that the Arab states, they had their leaders parachuted in by the British and the French after the First World War. And
I mean, at the end of the day, what are they going to do? I mean, let's not forget, Iraq invaded Kuwait in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, the thing is that Iraq, Kuwait was part of Iraq. That was divided off because it was rich in oil and given to a family that was Jewish at one time.
Who put Saddam Hussein in power in the first place?
Yeah, that money has been used to create terrorism all over the world, especially in the Belt and Road. From the Uyghurs in China itself, from Myanmar, right along the Belt and Road. It's Islamic, so-called Islamic, because they're not Islamic. And it's interesting.
Islamic, they are part and parcel. You're absolutely right. What they do
there's much Islamic as the Zionists are Jews, and and you would find along that path. It's a bit like with fundamental evangelical Christians. You find a lot of paedophilia within these cults as well.
Yeah, and I don't want to drift too much off the topic. Yeah, but go on.
But it's interesting that one of the purest forms of Islam and Arabic will be found in Yemen.
Yeah,
and those those countries that got rid of their leaders, like Libya, those countries that got rid of their Western given leaders, like Libya, Iraq, Syria, they're the ones that have been in these forever wars, and we've seen the result of these forever wars that have put either destroyed the countries and made them, basket case countries, or they put pro-Israeli leadership into those countries.
Yeah, exactly. And what you've got is Myanmar at the moment, which is undergoing all sorts of craziness. As you rightly point out, we've had 28 Chinese engineers killed in the Belt and Road. And of course, what they're trying to do is make sure that China, Russia, and India can't link up and make this massive link up, of course, across the continent. And we know that Iran is a major part of that. With the roadway that's going to go, with the railway that's going to go here to a place called Chabahar, which we've already mentioned, which is the bay they might try and capture. And then, of course, they are able to do a deal, China with Pakistan. And remember that we've just had the Nepal overthrow as well. We've had the Myanmar overthrow. And of course, there's lots going on in Tajikistan and of course, Kyrgyzstan as well. And there's lots of this going on. And the whole idea is to try and make this as unstable as possible. Because they now own, literally, America own this area along here. They want this the BRICS and the Belt and Road to completely disappear. And the way they make that disappear, of course, is getting control of Pakistan by throwing, of course, Imran Khan in jail. And then they start to destabilize other areas like India, Nepal in between India and China. Myanmar, which of course then can spill into Bangladesh and cause India and China a problem. So you're absolutely right, and they don't want this to. They want this to fail. They want it to fail. Louis Bastos.
I've said it before. Until Israel is, what do you call it, disarmed or destroyed, there will never be peace in the Middle East. Never be peace.
I don't think there will be. I think you're right. And I hope that answers Chris's question on terms of, whether they're going to go in. I don't think they have a choice. They're just going to, Trump is going to come out with a load of old nonsense tomorrow, and then he's going to go flying in 4 or 5 days later. They didn't send all of these craft over there, this close amphibious support craft, and then they're training in Cyprus and everything else. They're going in, but they're going in a limited way. But then eventually, if it goes badly wrong, they've got to put more troops. Now, remember, we were the ones who turned around and said they've got 17,500 troops going in. And then everybody went, no, it's only 5,000. I said, no, there's already that many there. And then suddenly we find out there's another 10,000 and there's 2,500 somewhere else. Nilis.
Well, and I think there'll never be stability in Western or Europe or America as well, because...
No, of course.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get on to Starmer in a minute, but he's bought and paid for.
Yeah, this Zionism is what's corrupting our moralities as well. If you look at the root of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've only got to look at some of the language, Nilis. I'll give you for instance. Here we go. The good old BBC. Okay. Here we go. This is not an occupation, by the way. Although they say this is known as an occupation. The BBC actually turning around here and going, Israel says it will keep control over parts of southern Lebanon after the war with Hezbollah ends. So Israel's keeping control. It's not an occupation at all, Nilis.
No.
There we go. And you're absolutely... Yeah, go on.
Well, we've been occupied since, I would say, I think it's 1699, I think, when the formation of the Bank of England. Probably.
Well, as I say, we'll get on to Starmer in a minute, but there's also some other nonsense that we need to address. The US strongly considering NATO exit, says Trump, and he might mention something about this as well tomorrow. Now, very, very simply, take absolutely no notice of it whatsoever. This is a tool to try and literally gain as much traction and try and get some, not so much payback, but get full control. And to reassert once again who's the boss of NATO. They're not leaving NATO. If you think for 1 second that they're going to abandon all their bases, their air bases and their naval bases, and they're building an air base and a naval base in Sweden as we speak. That's been kept very, very quiet, but we did tell you about it about a year and a half ago. They've already started building that. Then very simply, he's not leaving NATO. He's not going to abandon all those air bases, airfields and naval bases in Europe. Absolutely not going to happen. Andy.
What happens if it's the other way around? What happens if all these countries say, fuck off? Excuse my French, sorry, I didn't mean to say that.
Yeah. Yes. So let's be absolutely straight here, Andy. Eventually, the UK is going to become a Muslim country. Would you agree?
Probably, yes.
Not in our lifetime, maybe, but maybe
No.
in about 50 to 60 years. Do you think the Americans are going to let the Muslim countries have a nuclear weapon?
No.
There you go. It tells you everything you need to know.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Tells you everything you need to go. We've got war coming with the USA, just not for a while.
Yeah, it would be nice for if Trump says, right, we're thinking of leaving NATO, then for all these other countries just to call his bluff and to say, right, okay, well, don't worry about you leaving, we'll leave.
Andy, I totally agree with you. I would when he said, "Oh, we're going to leave NATO," I said, "Great, take your bases with you."
Yeah.
Load up Ramstein and load up Lakenheath and Mildenhall and just bugger off. Just go.
Yeah.
Nobody wants you. We had all this thing with the Greenham Common. That's why I really don't like, like the CND and everything else. Lovely movement and everything else. It didn't shift one American base. Nillis, you got your hand up, buddy? Okay. Let's wait. We'll wait for Nillis. Let's get on with some.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Right. You say we can become a Muslim country. I don't think we are. I think we're going to become an Anglo-Zionist Muslim country, which would, if you look at, I don't think all this paedophilia that we were having from these Pakistani grooming grams, that's not part of Islam. That's part of this Zionist religion. And what we were saying before about you have it in Christian Zionists as well. You have that same sort of thing.
Yeah.
You see Prince Charles, the king was sucking up to the same people. You see Starmer sucking up to the same people. But you see Britain, America, and Israel bombing Lebanon, which are real Muslims. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that. We'll have to see. It might take a long time for us to be able to figure it out between us, but that would be my take. But let's have a listen to Keir. Not quite here, Keir.
The conflict in the Middle East has now entered a second month, and while we're working at pace for de-escalation and peace, it is now clear that the impact of this war will affect the future of our country. So today I want to reassure the British people that no matter how fierce this storm, we are well placed to weather it, and that we have a long-term plan to emerge from it a stronger and more secure nation. First, let me say once again, this is not our war. We will not be drawn into the conflict. That is not in our national interest. And the most effective way we can support the cost of living in Britain is to push for de-escalation in the Middle East and a reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, which is such a vital route for energy. To that end, we're exploring each and every diplomatic avenue that is available to us. The Foreign Secretary and the Chancellor have met their counterparts in the G7. The Defence Secretary has been in the Middle East speaking to our partners, and the UK has now brought together 35 nations around our statement of intent to push as one for maritime security across the Gulf. And today I can announce that later this week, the Foreign Secretary will host a meeting that brings those nations together for the first time, where we will assess all viable diplomatic and political measures that we can take to restore freedom of navigation, guarantee the safety of trapped ships and seafarers, and resume the movement of vital commodities. Following that meeting, we will also convene our military planners to look at how we can marshal our capabilities and make the Strait accessible and safe after the fighting has stopped.
So there's Keir Starmer coming out with absolute nonsense. Not our war. We've been in it since it started, Keir, and you know it. They've been bombing from Akrotiri. What do you think those planes are doing on the runway? Do you think they're loading up with Smarties or something to drop on the Iranians? You're full, absolutely full of it. And what he's actually doing there is preparing you for the maritime war that is about to happen with Russia. Okay? That is exactly what this is about. It's got nothing to do with the Straits of Hormuz. They're just going to keep buying energy from America. This is all part of, shall we say, a lot of nonsense coming out from these people. And of course, there's no question in my mind, as far as I'm concerned, that this guy is just queuing us up, ready for this war. And while he's talking about that, he's certainly not queuing us up for this.
Right, we're going to bring you some breaking news now, and sadly you're going to be throwing your remote controls at the screen, because despite us giving many millions more to the French, clearly they're not doing the job that we want them to, because hundreds of small boat migrants are now in the English Channel heading towards the UK. That's the very latest from our producer Chris down in Kent, who does such sterling work for us, monitoring the situation in the Channel. We've had a break in the weather. Of course, what happens every time we get a break in the weather, that's when the people smugglers push these boats out into the Channel, regardless of the French patrols on the beaches. Yes, they deter some of the launches, but the vast majority of these boats get onto the water. Many don't make it because of engine failure, because they're overcrowded, because the wind and waves are a bit too great, but many others do, as we know, get to the UK. 41,500 last year alone.
Now, Keir Starmer's talking about boarding boats, maritime boats. You can get the Navy out and various helicopters and the RAF out to board tankers that he thinks might be carrying Russian oil. We can't get them out to stop the boats. That should tell you everything you need to know. Now, I'm going to make a bit of a claim here, and I may end up with egg on my face. But I think tomorrow you'll hear, as I was saying just now, that America, that Trump is going to be pushing about leaving NATO. And the simple fact is that he wants to get NATO all back into line to help him with his maritime cause of taking or reopening the Straits of Hormuz. And the whole idea is to do that bombing and then, of course, do whatever plan they've got lined up. But he wants NATO and everybody else on board. He can't do it without them. And I think tomorrow what you're going to hear from him is not only a lot of nonsense about Iran, but you're going to hear NATO discussed and his disgust with them and the fact that he, without NATO, we're going to leave and all the rest of it, so that NATO are then on board. And once NATO start sort of prevaricating and everything else, we've already got Alexander Stubb going, well, we can work it out. We can work it out. You absolute lemons. You're being played to the nth degree. It is incredible. And I hope Chris does this, because I know he has a lot to do with no to NATO. It is incredible that we have so many stupid people that are part of NATO, part of this NATO alliance. Trump is just going to play them like a fiddle tomorrow. And of course, they're all going to come running left, right and centre. So just letting you know what's coming in. And of course, as for Keir Starmer, he can get people out. He's not going to stop the boats, but he can get people out to do other things as well. Just to let you know as well, let's have a look at this. That's the Anatoly Volodkin, and it is now at dock inside of Cuba. So it walked through the blockade. So when you get ships that are under flag of convenience, like, it's got a charter out of Liechtenstein and it's owned by a Malaysian company, but it's flying a Russian flag so it doesn't get boarded. But he's taking, oil or whatever to Russia. There's a big difference between boarding that and boarding a tanker that is full of Russians, that's under a Russian flag and owned by Russia. That's a big, big difference. And of course, you can see there, even America aren't doing that. And everybody's saying, oh, it's carrying humanitarian aid. No, it isn't. It's carrying oil. You could call that humanitarian aid because there's about a month's worth of oil in that tanker for the whole of Cuba. So anybody that's coming out with that nonsense is once again talking unbelievable nonsense. Thank you for coming, Chris. And just to let you know, before Chris goes as well, the EU have commissioned the 1.6 billion. They finally stole the Russian assets. They are giving, and they've managed to work it out with Belgium. They are giving 1.6 billion of the Russian assets. It's not the fact that they're taking some of it. This isn't any extra money that they've earned from it or whatever. They are taking that 1.6 billion out of the proper assets, which of course there's only about 82 billion left. We did an in-depth thing on that, but they have now gone and deliberately shown that they are taking the Russian assets. Not that they weren't, but now they've publicly come out and said it. And of course, that's going to have massive economic implications for the countries going forward, because people are just going to go, right, I'm out of here. And one other thing before we sort of get started on this, while we're talking about ships as well, Malaysians have now got free passage all the way through. As you can see, look, there are lots of little boats that are escorting them through. And what the latest one that got blown up, I don't know whether you've heard the story about this, but the latest one that got blown up literally came through the Straits of Hormuz. They asked what the passcode was, and they said, what passcode? And then they got a rocket because you have to pay your 2 million toll. Then you get a passcode that you then use to go through the Straits of Hormuz. If you don't have that passcode, you are going to get blown up. And that is exactly what happened to that ship. They asked them where their passcode was. They said, what passcode are you going on about? 2 minutes later, they received a rather large smashing. And of course, we're going to see that. Talking of a large smashing, we need to talk about this. 177 men dead in the space of 20 minutes outside of Pokrovsk. Now, this is absolutely horrific. The Ukrainians use these as a meat wave. They put lots and lots of people together, threw them onto the front line, made them charge Pokrovsk. And by the way, Luhansk is now fully in Russia's control, not Donetsk, but Luhansk is. And as you can see, there were columns, absolutely columns and columns of vehicles that tried to make a breakthrough into Pokrovsk. It ended up with the death of over 130 men, as I say, and lots more injured. There is literally the roadways are littered with the bodies of these poor Ukrainian souls who were thrown into the front line. You can see just before there, 2 men who were about to, shall we say, not survive. Every single person that was in that group was wiped out. And in fact, they have spoken about it. One of the commanders actually broke ranks. Here we go. The 425th Assault Regiment, Scala, has been a unit that the Ukrainians themselves has described as a meat combine for over a year. Just go to the Facebook group with 13,000 members of families of missing soldiers from this unit and read the post there to discover it. The constant pattern of the missing. Age around 45 to 50, 2 to 3 months military service, 1 to 3 combat missions. Part of the 425th Regiment losses are artificially concealed by attributing them to the 210th separate battalion, which has been part of its composition for a year, but is still formally a separate unit. Now, I do want you to look at that. A regiment, 425th Regiment, okay? 425th Regiment tells you everything you need to know, or should do. 425 regiments. They started out with 142. And as each one has got slaughtered, they've added a new one. And of course, that has been part and parcel of what's gone on. Also, other things that are not going too well for them, of course. Western Kupiansk has been absolutely, the Russians are now steaming through there. So, of course, the Russians left because they didn't have enough people in there. And to be fair to the Ukrainians, they took it back over. But while this has kept them very, very busy, the Russians have been busy making all sorts of pushes around Kupiansk, around Kramatorsk and Slavyansk in the Donbass region. And now that they have, shall we say, the rest of Luhansk under their boot, they can now sort of go back into Kupiansk, and they don't need too many soldiers in that area to hold. They can now literally turn on that, because the Ukrainians, as usual, diverted a lot of soldiers up there and left themselves weak in other areas. Being a bad week for Zelensky, the UAE have turned around and said that Zelensky can go home and take whatever's left of his drone operators with him. And not only did they get blown up, but they also, literally the UAE have turned around and said that their drones or their drone battery offensive is completely useless, hasn't stopped anything, and they don't want it anymore. Not only that, they've lost one of their drone depots. Here's the look. No.
Does Zelensky keep the $1 billion that they paid for it?
I would imagine that he will. I'd imagine that they will. It just goes to show you everything you need to know, doesn't it, in terms of that? Or is that just me?
Well, you know what? Many people say this is war in Ukraine is a American proxy war, but I think it's a Zionist proxy war myself.
Yeah,
and
it's the same thing, isn't it? Because Ukraine is their spiritual homeland.
Yeah, and we can see the same thing about this stripping the Russian assets. What's that going to do? That's going to put Europe more and more in debt. Is that any of that money go to Ukraine? Is it going to go and pay the pensions of dead Ukrainian soldiers? No, I don't think so. That's just going to put Europe more in debt and more in hock to the Zionist bankers.
They're going to come knocking on the door. They're going to come knocking on the door. No doubt about it.
Yeah. And we're not going to see much cheaper Russian gas or oils very much soon, are we?
Yeah, no problem at all. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. And of course we'll make absolutely certain that. How can I put this? Once again, Nicholas, it's the very problem that you have with arms dealers, politicians, and bankers. They're getting rich. Everybody else is suffering. And the sooner people wake up to that, the better all we're going to go. Let's have a little look at this. There's two of these. This is also in Ukraine. This is a guy literally being snatched from. Literally being snatched from a child's playground. Turned out he was the sole parent, and they sent the child to an orphanage. This is what we are backing. This is what we are backing. And I'm gonna play this. I wasn't gonna play this because it's quite upsetting. This is what we're backing. This is another child seeing his father Nicholas very quickly.
Yeah, they must have changed the law, because it used to be illegal to snatch somebody off the street.
They've never cared, never mind. The law is only there to protect them. It's not there to protect people. This is a child literally seeing along with the mother, seeing the father being snatched. This is a little upsetting, do be warned.
Штулянь заводят с баллонами. Что вы делаете? Отпустите вы его, вас 10 человек в масках. Господи, что же вы творите, Господи? Еще и с баллонами кидается на людей, на детей. Что вы творите? Макар, все будет хорошо, все. Я тебя отпусти камень. Все будет хорошо.
Давай его заберем уже, Агарда.
Мы не можем его забрать. Вова, что мне делать? Я вас забыла спросить. Я разговариваю с мужем. Он еще человек, мы живем в свободной стране. Что вы творите? Что делать? Паша, на работу? Чего вы ему рот затыкаете? Он что, не человек? Я не дура, и не тыкай ты мне, слышишь? Ты дура. И что? Не уберу.
Блядь, иди в жопу, блядь.
Как ты со мной, слушай, как вы разговаривать имеете право такое? Иди в жопу. Еще баллончиком не пшикни. Что?
Мамочка! Мамочка!
I don't really need to say anything, do I? Lee Williams.
Just quick one. One, have they got armour on them, like guns or anything like that? That's number one. And two, would it just be a case they need filling up with a bit of petrol? I mean, is it a case that people can't see what's coming? Is it, when he's walking down the street, is there anybody local that knows what's going on there?
Oh, they all know what's going on. They're too frightened. You have to remember. You have to remember it was only around about 14,000 brown shirts that terrified the whole of Germany. Louis Vastos.
If I was Ukrainian and not in the war and at that age, I would definitely carry automatic. You can buy an automatic anywhere in Ukraine. Yeah. And I'd shoot them all. Honestly, I would shoot them all. I don't care if I die, but I would shoot them all. I'll take guys with me. I'll take them with me, but I don't care.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting. And this Zelensky is a real MF person.
Yeah. I'm with you, Louis. If I'd have been there and I'd have had a weapon on me, I would have shot every single one of them because they're not men. And we in the West are doing that.
We are supporting these damn criminals, these Nazis, these Zionists, and that stupid Tama and Macron and this bitch of a Callas, all insulting Russia for. I would destroy these people. Really, I would take them one by one from a building. I'd be watching where they're going, and I'll take them out one by one with my 308, 200-gram bullets. I'll take them all out, really. And if they're in the streets, I definitely have a Colt 45 or a Magnum on me to blow them all out of my way. I can't take this nonsense, and the poor child will disappear.
Yeah, and here's where that's okay. And I had the same reaction when I watched it. If we in the West, and you're out there, I know you're out there, if you're supporting this, that has done this to 2 million kids, because there's 2 million dead, well over 2 million dead, and you can argue all you like, okay? You're doing this to one child. You're a scumbag. Think how many millions, how many hundreds of thousands of kids are not seeing their fathers again because they've been kidnapped to go into a war that they do not want to fight for the country that they're in. That doesn't make them cowards, it makes them sensible. And the cowards are you people hiding online and the politicians that are supporting Ukraine. You are absolute scum, every single one of you. And all these kids, everything that happens to them is because of you supporting this nonsense. You made Ukraine fight an unwinnable war. And who's paying for that? Not the lunatics that are in charge, not the neo-Nazis, but the ordinary men and women and their children. Nillis.
Yeah, I've always been a monarchist, ever since I was a small child. But seeing the king, every time Zelensky turns up, he's hugging him and kissing him. And I think Zelensky is the new Jimmy Savile, the Procura. You know, I feel like I want to go be with those people with the yellow signs saying "Not our king," because I feel great betrayal, really.
Yeah, and rightly so, and so you should. When they're doing this to, you can see the heartbreak of the little kid there. That tells you more than watching anybody get blown up. It really does, because it brings home exactly what's happening, and anybody that thinks that is okay is absolutely full of it. Lee Williams.
Whereabouts is it actually positioning? Where was he taken from? What
Blah,
part?
blah, blah, hang on, let me just check.
Yeah.
He was taken from Kramatorsk.
Wow.
There you go.
So it's ongoing. It's ongoing at the moment.
Yeah, and it's not going to stop. It really isn't. And of course, the thing that the logistics centres in Ukraine are getting hammered. Have a look at these. Now they've just lost a massive drone factory in logistics there, and of course that's one. Should we say other area? This is an unwinnable war. They're just losing it bit by bit, and it is the most brutal war you've ever seen. While we're talking of all sorts of nonsense, let's talk about a journalist in the EU who's been banned here, or sanctioned, we should say.
The EU sanctioned a journalist for making pro-Palestinian reporting. Yes, guys, the EU has frozen all the money and assets of a German citizen, Hussein Dorgu, just for making pro-Palestinian journalism. According to the Council of the EU, he filmed and published videos of anti-Israel rioters in a German university. The Council believes these recordings supports the actions of Russia to undermine the stability of the EU. Yes, it's crazy, but this is actually the official reason the EU gives to sanction this journalist. And being sanctioned is not a joke. It means that he was simply informed of the decision with no chance to defend himself in a regular court. He is left with no option but to accept it, while all his funds and assets are being frozen. All of this is fucking crazy, but it got worse. The sanctioned journalist just said on X that the German authorities have seized the bank accounts of his wife just because they fear that he could use money from his wife. Because he is sanctioned, it's illegal to give him money. And now with his wife's bank account frozen, they cannot pay rent, buy food or all the other necessities that needs to raise 3 children. Here in the EU, we like to say that we are the biggest democracy in the world. Well, we can not only say it, but we also have to act like a democracy. And I believe destroying the life of one of our citizens for making journalism is not a feature of a real democracy. Let me be clear. If there are any concerns that an EU citizen has committed a crime, they should go to court, have the opportunity to defend themselves, and be presumed innocent until they are proven guilty. European Commission and the Council of the EU. As a member of the European Parliament, I ask you to stop this madness and respect due process and freedom of speech.
And that, of course, is the EU, which, of course, is headed by the European Commission, Kaja Kallas, Ursula von der Leyen, who wants to jab all your children. These people are monsters. Nillis.
Yeah, we saw the same in Nazi Germany, didn't we? People were sanctioned and lost their jobs and their bank accounts. We saw the same in Bolshevik Russia.
Yeah.
And Putin pointed this out. He said, what we went through during Bolshevism, you're going through now in Europe. And that's terrifying, really. You can see that their Nazi grandfathers, the apple hasn't fallen far from the tree.
No, it hasn't. Yeah. It really hasn't. You're absolutely right. And if you're wondering who Nillis is talking about, Annalena Baerbock, go and have a look at these grandfathers. Go and have a look. Annalena Baerbock, now the Secretary to the UN. Kaja Kallas, head of the EU Commission. Ursula von der Leyen. And there are many, many more. Sanna Marin. Go and have a look at these people. Nillis. And then Sean Murphy.
I thought you were going to say Baerbock, and I thought you were going to miss out all the others, but you carried it on. So that's man again.
I mean, there's loads of them. Go and have a look at Blaise Metrawelli, who is now the head of MI6. Her grandfather, a Nazi collaborator. Switch on, people. Sean Murphy.
Well, I think it's absolutely disgusting, Warren. You know, a chap who's just doing his job, is now his wife. They got 3 children. They're not going to be able to pay rent. They're not going to be able to buy food. They're not going to be able to do anything because they've got no money unless he's got some decent friends who help them out on the quiet. But the thing is, that is not just Europe. That's happening in this country as well.
Crazy,
that's happening in the UK as well.
Yep.
If the government don't like what you say, they'll do all that, and you don't get the opportunity to argue your case in court.
Yeah. I mean, if you think
fascism,
if you think there is any difference between what 1930s Germany did and what the European Union do and what we do in the UK and what is happening in Ukraine,
no difference whatsoever.
Or even in Gaza, you're completely mistaken. We haven't learned from 1930s Germany and what they were doing. We've allowed them to literally take over. Literally.
Well, we know what they were doing, and they know what they were doing, but they don't care. As long as they've got their snouts in the trough, that's all they care about. They don't care about the man in the street.
No, they're cut from the same cloth. Jim.
Barry Warren, it just seems like Europe is under the stranglehold of the offspring of Nazi vipers.
Yes.
They're just taking away our liberties bit by bit by bit by bit.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Jim. It is amazing that people out there, I know you guys are all wide awake, but if you're out there, people, just go and have a look. Go and have a look at what the Nazis did. First of all, they got hold of the media, and anybody that disagreed with them, they closed that media down or ostracized it. They got control of the media space. Who has control of that now? Okay. They also made it illegal to criticize various things. Who's doing that now? They also overthrew or marched into other countries. Who's doing that now by rigging elections? Just go and have a look. And of course, also doing false flags so that they can go in and overthrow their governments and using false flags like protests on the street. Who's doing that now? Okay. Who's going into countries and wiping out entire civilizations? Okay. The apple, as Nillis was saying there, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, Jim. It really doesn't. You're absolutely right. These people are taking over. And if you don't recognize that, if you don't see it, you're next. Don't think that they're not coming for you. They will. Lee Williams.
The fact that Starmer, when people, we kind of know anyway, but that he was saying that there's going to be a war. Who would it be a war with? Would it be in a lovely area against Russia from last year? Or
no, he's lining up. He's lining up for Russia because they've got it on him. Suddenly these 3 Ukrainian male models don't suddenly, shall we say, one of those. Oh, shall we release everything that we've got? If you think that the Ukrainian dissident that got shot, who had his laptop taken away in Madrid, is not locked into that happened 2 days after the arrest.
Yeah,
I've got a very large
taking away evidence. That's what it is. Yeah,
exactly that. So let's get into. We've got a couple more for you to get through. Let's get into this. Here we go. Terrorism plays quite well, doesn't it? When you're ISIS, Al Jalani here, sporting a €144,000 watch on his wrist there. There's the watch. Nice work if you can get it. Obviously, terrorism pays well these days. So one of these people, I'm one of these. I call them elite terrorists because terrorism now pays really, really well, especially for the people who are carrying it out. Nillis.
Yeah, I don't know where he got it, but I know the Emir of Qatar. Yeah, every time somebody would go and visit him, he'd give them a really, really expensive Rolex worth hundreds of thousands. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that. And this has been going on for years and years and years when they put dictators in office. But Idi Amin had a huge collection of watches. That's not very well known, by the way. But Idi Amin actually had a collection of watches that was worth over £3 million back then. So that tells you everything you need to know. And of course, a friend of mine, I tried to buy the book from him. There was a wonderful book written by Idi Amin. There's only about 10 copies of it left, that I believe, and they're absolutely, well, I think they're priceless to a collector. Democracy and How to Achieve It by Idi Amin. Nillis.
Yeah, I wonder what happened to the Marcus shoe collection. Is that still intact?
Yeah, exactly that. Just absolutely mental, isn't it? Let's get into this while we're sort of looking at it, and we'll have a little bit of fun to end up with. This is Spain. Facts. Have a listen to this.
Es importante recordar, no olvidar, para no cometer los errores que se cometieron en el pasado. Y desgraciadamente la historia se repite. Pero esta vez no como farsa, sino como tragedia. Porque a Aznar le ha reemplazado el señor Feijóo y el señor Abascal, y a Bush le ha reemplazado Donald Trump. Y en lugar de Irak tenemos a Irán. Por cierto, Irán, señorías, es un país 2 veces más poblado que Irak y con un peso sobre la economía global 5 veces mayor. Un país que cuenta con más soldados regulares, señorías, que Alemania, que Francia y que Italia juntos. Esa es la fuerza militar que tiene Irán, con tecnologías muy avanzadas, como estamos viendo, capaces de destruir aviones en pleno vuelo, lanzar misiles balísticos a 4.000 kilómetros de distancia, controlar el estrecho de Hormuz pese a la presencia de flota americana. En definitiva, Irán es una potencia militar. Y lleva, por cierto, 40 años preparándose para una guerra como esta. Lo que quiero decirles con todo ello es que no estamos ante el mismo escenario que en la guerra ilegal de Irak. Estamos en algo mucho peor, con un potencial de impacto mucho más amplio y mucho más profundo.
There we are. That was Spain spitting facts. And well done to Spain. They turned around and said, no airspace, no nothing. Not like Starmer. They've actually turned around and said, you're not doing anything from here whatsoever. We've got 3 little stories now for you. This one is troubling. This is the Chinese with their robot dogs practicing storming a building. Have a look. And they are practicing with those as we speak. So these units are actually practicing with these robot dogs. This is the Chinese, of course, and if I was them, I'd be very, very worried. I wouldn't want them coming. Imagine them armed with weapons coming after you. Lee Williams.
There was one of those that was seen, and a lot of people go, oh, it's AI, and it wasn't AI. It was a robot dog that was in the constituency of an area where it was barred up, and there was a guy there, and the guy that was filming it said, what is that? And he went, what are you on about? You know, he was obviously a foreigner. And he said, no, it's nothing. It was a dog. And the dog is robotic, but then, you know, if it had ULEZ in it or whatever it had in it, but not like to the degree of weapons. But this is in England. So that was just obviously on the news. I just thought I'd let you know that.
Okay. And I've got to say, you know, if you had 700 of them walking across the battlefield at you, you wouldn't be very happy. Nillis.
Yeah, I saw that actually. It was on the YouTube. Somebody went to investigate this Islamic cult somewhere, and they had this massive house with big cars and big loads of guards, and they had these robotic dogs patrolling the perimeter of their house as well.
Yeah.
They were. Yeah, that's probably where the Saudi money goes to.
Yeah,
Because
exactly. Let's face it, robotic dogs, you don't have to feed them. All you have to do is plug them in overnight and away they go. So
yeah, they're quite intimidating. I don't think these dogs, they would just look scary. They didn't have any weapons or anything like that, but it's just like, it's a bit of a machismo thing to do.
Well, Mark Newman's just said in the comments, not even remotely funny. This is literally something that is very, very terrifying and scary. And you're absolutely right. It is terrifying and scary. Let's have a look at this. The nightmare is over. We're going to show you a couple of fun items now. The Chinese have come up with an ingenious idea of stopping you falling asleep on the motorway. And this is exactly what happens. Have a look at this. So the whole idea is mounted lasers that actually hit the boards. We'll show you it again. So the lasers can be fired literally onto these craft here, and they can beam it to hit the sign. And when it hits the sign, of course, it glows up all these lovely colours, and of course breaks up the monotony of you driving through the night. And the whole idea is to help you not fall asleep at the wheel. Trust the Chinese to come up with something like that. Rather strange, but rather good as well. And I think I don't mind that at all. If it stops one accident, good for it. Just in case you were thinking about taking a nice woman out for dinner, there we go. She wanted to have dinner somewhere very expensive, and if the Straits of Hormuz stays closed any longer, I think we'll all be trying to eat at home rather than eating out. But there you go. If you wanted to go somewhere expensive, there you go. Shell Gary. That's nice and expensive. Somebody popped their hand up there.
Yeah, sorry. I was just going to add with what's happened with the petrol market, it's up to £1.80 now. That's a diesel on obviously a supermarket of Morrison. So it's going up a little bit more than people think. I just thought let everybody know.
It's going to keep going up. It's going to keep going up. It's going to go up and up and up and up, and everything like that. Be prepared for the speech, and as soon as we get the speech. But I think we're going to see three things. There's going to be lots of bragging about Iran. There's going to be lots of stuff about where we've almost finished here and we're going home, which won't be the case. And there will be quite a bit about having a go at NATO and saying, we're leaving, they're all terrible, you're all cowards, all the rest of it, to try and get them to go along with what the Americans are about to do in Iran. Be aware that that is coming. Just in case you're not, just giving you a heads up. Sean Murphy.
Well, Warren, I wouldn't be surprised if they actually attempt some sort of landing whilst Trump's spieling out his speech.
I think they'll have about four or five days of bombing first. I think they'll need that. But what they're going to try and do is try and embarrass NATO into going along with them, into going along with what they're going to do. And as we're speaking, the missile base in Isfahan, they're absolutely smashing it, absolutely pounding it, rocket after rocket, wave after wave. Nillis.
Yeah, well, Trump always waits for the weekend to do something. It
Yeah,
might not be this weekend, which is Easter, but it might be next week.
I would say if it was me going on what the Americans normally do, and they don't change very much from what they do, you get 4 or 5 days of softening up first before they're going to try and attempt to do anything. But what they're going to try and also attempt to do tomorrow, I believe, I may be wrong, but I think he will try to put a stranglehold on NATO tomorrow, because they can't have NATO turning around and saying no. Saying no to the Americans is not on the menu, I'm afraid. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Keep saying it over and over again. Thank you very much for watching the show. We hope you've enjoyed it, and hope if you like what we do, then please come along onto Patreon, Warren Thornton, just type it in. And you're allowed to come on here and have your say. It's called free speech. As long as you're not abusive to the people that come on here, it's absolutely fine. You can disagree all you like, or you can literally have your own say. And that's what this channel is designed for. Take it easy, everyone. Hopefully, with a bit of luck, we'll see you all again tomorrow morning, where we should have some of Trump's speech by then. As I say, but for the time being, we've run out of time. Good night, all.